There we go. Okay. Just some informational facts about lead poisoning. It's highly neurotoxic. It occurs when a person has too much lead in their body. Blood tests tell us the amount of lead in the person's body. Children 6 and under are more sensitive to lead than adults are. A level of 3.5 micrograms per deciliter is considered a high lead level. Pregnant women exposed to lead can pass lead to their unborn baby, and lead gets into the body when it's inhaled or swallowed. We can start coming.
Did you know that in 2019, only 68% of 1-year-olds and 38% of 2-year-olds were tested for lead? When the testing goal in Iowa is 75% of 1 and 2-year-olds. And Medicaid requires a blood test for all 1 and 2-year-old children, while CDC and IDPH recommend testing for non-Medicaid 1 and 2-year-old children. The following is the risk of lead poisoning across the state that is available on the Iowa Public Health Tracking Portal. The darker the area, the higher the risk. In this assessment, it is clear that there is still a risk of lead poisoning in our state, and lead poisoning is 100% preventable. If you don't test, you can't diagnose. If you don't diagnose, you can't intervene. In partnership with the Iowa Institute of Public Health Research and Policy and the Childhood Lead Advisory Work Group, the Iowa Department of Public Health has revised the Childhood Lead Poisoning Risk Questionnaire and blood testing guidelines to help increase testing rates for children under 3 years of age, especially children in high-risk areas of the state. The call is made up of pediatricians, nurses, public health professionals, housing officials, elected officials, and more. In this video, we will discuss the updates to this tool. This tool should be used for all children at well child visits between 6 months and 6 years of age. This testing risk assessment schedule is in alignment with that of the Early and Periodic Screening, Diagnostic, and Treatment, also known as EPSDT. It should be noted that a blood lead test is required on all children at 12 and 24 months of age. According to the American Academy of Pediatrics, blood lead concentrations of children who live in lead-contaminated environments typically increase rapidly between 6 and 12 months of age, peak between 18 and 36 months of age, and then gradually decrease. Emphasizing the need to test all children at 12 and 24 months of age, and assessing risk at all well child visits between 6 months and 6 years of age. The newly revised questionnaire is a 2-page document with testing guidelines and questions related to lead exposure risks. A questionnaire page is divided into 3 sections. The first section is designed to gather patient information like name, date of birth, and primary address. This information can be used by providers and IDPH in tracking the child's blood lead history and determining if additional testing or services are required. In the next section of the questionnaire, providers are provided with a brief reminder of testing requirements for children under 3 years in age. Guidance for testing children between 6 months and 6 years in age based on questionnaire responses is also provided in this section. The most significant changes were made in the third part 4 question section. For example, there are fewer questions for parents or guardians to answer, 7 versus 10. Each question was designed to be easier to understand and solicit a more accurate response from the parent or guardian. Additionally, 4 examples of typical sources of lead and lead activities found in Iowa were included for some questions. The question section includes questions for all risks of lead exposure, including agent causing a child lives-in or visits, home renovations, chewed on objects, a close contact with elevated blood lead level, being in a foreign country, hobbies of adults in contact with the child, and use of products from other countries. The don't know response was added to the response section for parents and guardians that were not certain about a question. Immediate testing is recommended when a response to any question is yes or don't know. When using the risk questionnaire, if there are yes or don't know responses to any of the questions, you should 1. Provide education to the parents about the risks of lead and the benefits of nutrition, hygiene, and cleanliness. 2. Perform a blood lead test if the child is 3, 4, or 5 years of age. And 3, consider the risks and benefits of testing at 6, 9, 15, 18, and 30 months of age. If responses to all the questions are no, reevaluate at every well-child visit, or more often if deemed necessary based on county lead risk factors, which can be found in the county lead report cards on the Childhood Lead Poisoning Prevention webpage. This tool should be implemented in all hospitals, clinics, and provider offices in Iowa, providing services to children under 6 years in age. You can find this tool on the Iowa Childhood Lead Poisoning Prevention Program website pages for providers, labs, and schools, and all resources. If you would like more information about this tool and how to implement this tool in your area, contact the Iowa Childhood Lead Poisoning Prevention Program at 800-972-2026.
Okay. Why is lead poisoning a danger to your child's health? The CDC reports there is no safe lead level. It can cause long-term effects and cause significant effects on a child's health. It can lower your child's IQ, decrease ability to pay attention, and performance in school. So those are really long-term effects on your children. Good news is lead poisoning is 100% preventable. This kind of recaps some of the things. Lead poisoning can cause damage to your child's brain and nervous system, slows their growth and development, learning behavior problems, hearing and speech. And all those things combined can lower that IQ, decrease ability to pay attention, and the performance in school. Why is lead poisoning a danger to your child's health? Well, she's getting that ready with this little fact thing. Each year, around 340 children in Iowa have elevated lead levels. I had no idea. That seems like quite a bit. So.
This is lead. We don't really like lead. You see, it all goes back to a time when we thought we could be friends with lead. In fact, lead was even popular, invited into a whole range of everyday items like paint and gasoline. But over time, lead grew out of control and revealed a dark secret. It just can't stop poisoning people. So today, we've had enough. It's time to put lead to bed. That's because lead is causing a massive global health crisis, one that isn't getting enough attention. Let's take a look. Lead is a highly toxic metal and has particularly harmful effects on children. Young children absorb about 4 to 5 times as much lead as adults, and it affects almost every organ in a child's body. Even limited exposure to lead can cause damage that's devastating and permanent. So it's not surprising that we don't want lead around here anymore. What is surprising, though, is the scale of the problems that it's caused. 1 in 3 children worldwide is now affected. That's around 800 million children across the globe at risk of lead poisoning. It's not all lead's fault, though. You see, lead's usually perfectly okay being left alone in the Earth's crust. Lead still has some valuable uses in things like batteries and electronics. And if handled with care and recycled properly, it can even be possible to live alongside lead. But once lead is released into the environment, usually through people handling it the wrong way, it just can't help getting into everything it touches. Into the soil beneath us through improper battery recycling, disposal of unwanted electronics, and other industrial processes. And from the dust released by peeling or chipping lead paints, into the water we drink, for example from old pipes that contain lead, into the air we breathe, from unregulated smelting of lead-acid batteries and burning of e-waste, and even into some of the food and household goods that we consume, from contaminated spices to glazed ceramics, cosmetics, and painted toys. Once it's in the environment, lead lurks quietly, and its effects are insidious. Its symptoms difficult to spot. Sometimes there are no warning signs at all, until it's too late. The effects on the developing brains of young children are particularly severe. For pregnant women, lead exposure can harm their unborn child and raise the risk of a range of complications, including miscarriage, stillbirth, premature birth, and low birth weight. There's no cure for lead poisoning. The damage it causes cannot be reversed. The only solution is prevention. We need to keep lead safely away from children. We need to put lead to bed. The good news is that it's possible to eliminate the danger of lead once and for all, but this needs support from governments to ensure lead is eliminated from certain consumer products, such as paints, toys, ceramics, spices, and cosmetics, that it's used and recycled safely, and that contaminated sites are cleaned up. It needs support from industry to ensure responsible manufacturing and recycling so that lead is not leaked into the environment. And it needs support from communities to be aware and look out for lead, to safely dispose of batteries and unwanted electronics, to keep children away from industrial and recycling sites, and to seek testing and care if a child may have been exposed to lead. By working together, we can eliminate the dangers of lead exposure to children. We can put lead to bed and ensure lifelong health and a bright future for every child.
Okay, why should Iowans be concerned about lead poisoning? Lead poisoning affects 1 in 14 Iowa children. Iowa's rate of lead poisoning is 4 times the national average, which is kind of scary. Nearly 60% of the homes in Iowa, both in rural and urban areas, were built before 1960. Just another little fact to kind of make you think about it. 981 children under 6 had a confirmed elevated lead level in Iowa during 2019. So that's enough to fill 13.5 school buses. Iowa Public Health has a tracking portal that I went on, and they do an exposure risk model. And I think in that first video, they kind of talked about that a little bit. They do an estimate of risk of childhood lead exposure based on housing, poverty, and language spoken in the home. So homes built before 1978 were likely to contain lead, poverty of children under 6, and language other than English spoken in the home. So all 3 of those things is what they look at. So Shelby County's results, which I was like kind of shocked, I guess, were high. So in comparison, Audubon County is moderate. So it's something to think about. Children, they're at risk. Although preventable, lead poisoning remains a significant health concern for young children. Lead's more dangerous to children than it is to adults. They absorb lead more than adults do. And they're more likely to be damaged by lead than adults. Pregnant women, lead in the blood during pregnancy can increase your risk for miscarriage. It can cause baby to be born too early or too small. It can hurt the baby's brain, kidneys, and nervous system. Can cause the child to have learning behavior problems later on in life. And some more information I learned about this, which was very interesting to me, was women that have been exposed to high lead levels prior to pregnancy can store that lead in their bones, and then when they're pregnant, it can be released into their system, and then the baby can get it. So it's kind of scary. Sources of lead. So kind of the biggest source is your lead-based paint in houses built before 1978. Other commercial products, children's toys and jewelry, and those would be from other countries. And the plastic or the metal parts or the paint they use from some other foreign countries that can have that. Some candy from foreign countries, which there was a kind of whole list of those, could possibly have lead. And I think it's really not on purpose, but more of a contamination type thing, is kind of what I read. Folk medicine, I looked into that. It was kind of maybe more some of your herbal medications that could come from maybe foreign countries, Hispanic cultures or Indian cultures. Obviously your soil and water contamination. Your soil is contaminated from buildings or houses that have lead-based paint. It's chipped off, it's coming into the ground contaminating. And then some of the pipes in your homes can have lead in them. This is an interesting fact. Cigarette smoke can increase your child's blood lead level. So I thought that was very interesting. So do not smoke around your children. And then work exposure. So adults that work in places that they're exposed to lead, they can bring that home to their children then. How do children become lead poisoning? Basically, the gist of this is they're putting things in their mouths. So if you have an area at your house where there's dust that's that's from the lead, or chips of paint, it's on the floor. Little kids, what do toddlers do? They put everything in their mouth. So anything that touches that, put it in their mouth. They pick up the little paint chips, put the paint chips in their mouth. They eat everything that's little. So that can be a serious issue. One of the things you can do is, just making sure to clean those areas thoroughly if you do have an area that has paint chips or dust. Oh, and imported jewelry and toys. So it made me think of, not that you see it very often, but you see little kids with little necklaces and stuff. And, if that came from a foreign country, possibly what do kids do? Put it in their mouth. Other sources, playing outside, sandboxes, near those old buildings where that paint's chipping off. They can breathe in the dust too if somebody's working on their home and they're sanding, say sanding the walls or sanding that area with that paint, that they can breathe that in. And then just playing around windows or any area where the paint is chipping. Adults, they can breathe in lead, fumes and dust. They get it on their hands, face, and clothes. How many times do we touch our face? When you're eating, people are smoking, they're, applying cosmetics, anything you're touching your face, if you have not washed your hands, you could potentially be contaminating yourself. So the jobs out there, some of the jobs listed that they work with lead are the lead battery production, welding, radiator repair, metal cutting, and sandblasting. So, if people would have a job like that, they would really need to be careful, keep their cars clean. You're gonna have to take those clothes off, wash your hands really good. And then hobbies too. Mowing bolas, I'm not sure how many people do that, but stripping furniture, I feel like I know a lot of people that strip furniture, so I thought that was interesting. And doing sandblasting, I don't know that many people that do that, but there's people out there. Identifying risk factors. Most of Iowa's pre-1978 homes contain some lead-based paint. So basically, if your house was built before 1978, assume that you guys have lead-based paint in your house. And your kids can become poisoned when the house dust or soil in their hands, puts into their mouth, they breathe it in, and they're going to get contaminated. Children, this is signs and symptoms of lead poisoning. But I'll tell you, most kids don't actually show signs and symptoms, okay? But if they do, these are some of the ones that they could show. So poor muscle coordination, not able to pay attention, more tired than usual, decreased muscle and bone growth. They can become easily excited, have stomach aches, speech, language, behavior problems, hearing damage. They can also have seizures. They can also die. This is more those are the signs and symptoms, but kind of leads into the health effects. So, health effect is brain damage, nervous system damage, long-term behavioral problems. They can have anemia, liver, kidney damage, long-term hearing loss, seizures we already talked about, hyperactivity, developmental delays, and then death. This is the signs and symptoms of lead poisoning in adults. If I remember right, I think that it said that adults might be more likely to show signs and symptoms. Is that right? Yeah. Okay, I was trying to remember that without looking that up. And some of the things are trouble remembering and concentrating, tired easily, unable to sleep, weakness and or loss of feeling in arms and legs, headaches, irritability, depression, and high blood pressure are just a few of the things. Ask your medical provider to do a lead test at your child's yearly checkup. So Iowa legislation, I would say, only requires children entering kindergarten to have at least one lead level test. But if you only do one right before they're in kindergarten, so they could be like 4 or 5, what if they've been elevated since 12 months old? It's too late. They've been elevated all those years. So, really ask your provider to test your kid every year. And then they might have other recommendations. If they test at that 3.5 or higher, then they need to be testing more often. Okay. There's 2 types of blood tests, a capillary test and a venous test. And so the first one they would do would be the little capillary test, like a little finger poke or a little heel poke on a kid anyways. And then it looks at if you were exposed to lead in the last 3 or 4 months. And so then if that shows high, then they're going to do a blood draw. Lead lead-based paints and hazards. So the paint obviously can be on windowsills, baseboards, doors, exterior siding, porches. Kitchens and bathrooms are more likely to have lead-based paint in them. And then especially outside when you're on an acreage or a farm, your old garages, buildings, and fences, and then actually the soil around those buildings and fences. When is it a hazard? When it's peeling, chipping, chalking, or cracking. So Angie brought me a little board here for everybody can see. You know, everybody's seen buildings like this where that's all peeling off. So that's dangerous. You know, that's going to peel off and get into the soil. Contaminate that soil, which can contaminate your children. And just, this was just kind of another picture, you know, finding those hazards. And again, that was just a picture that I had found online and looks just exactly like that. So, and one of the things with this that talked about, which I'm like, I guess I knew that, but didn't really think about it. So do you see how it's like the paint is peeling off in big chunks? So like a lot of times when you have layer after layer, it like peels off in a big chunk like that. So the top layer might not have any lead, but it peels off all the way to that bottom layer peels off, and that's where the lead is. If you find, you know, hazards in your home, don't panic. If you rent, you need to notify your landlord. If you own, you can call the Iowa Department of Public Health or Shelby County Public Health. Have all children under 6 years of age get tested for lead poisoning. Supervise your children and keep them away from that area if you suspect there's an area where they're getting it from. Don't allow your children to chew on those paints. You gotta get it cleaned up. They're gonna put it in their mouth, especially if they're toddlers. You know, weekly cleaning. You're gonna wash that woodwork, get that dust off there, keep it cleaned up. Make sure again you're washing items, pacifiers, bottles. They fall on the floor, they can get contaminated. The kid puts it into their mouth. Wash their hands often. You know, pick up any paint chips you see, and it said you could dispose of them in like large, like heavy-duty garbage bags and take them to the landfill. Reducing lead exposure and keeping a healthy home. This is a great one.
Lead can be found in paint, dust, and soil. It can be dragged in from soil on shoes, blown in on dust-filled windows, and most commonly, it can reside in the paint on your walls and get into the air when the paint on your walls chip. Lead poisoning is very dangerous. It can lower IQ, cause behavior and learning problems in children, and even kill people. Lead exposure has many hazards, including permanent brain damage, decreased kidney function, increased blood pressure, and an increased chance of having a miscarriage. Here's what you can do to clean up lead in and around your home. Wash your face and hands frequently, and always before eating. Wash your children's toys, bottles, and pacifiers. Vacuum the rooms in your house with a HEPA vacuum cleaner. Spray any paint chips that have fallen to the floor with water, and double bag them before throwing them out. Clean floors, window frames, window sills, and other surfaces useless with a damp cloth. Do not sweep with a broom or dry dust any surfaces, because this spreads the lead dust. Go to dehealthyhomes.org for more information on cleaners made specifically for lead and on how to find lead-safe certified contractors.
Nutrition recommendations. I'm not going to name all of these, you can read them. But the information I read is if your kids are not eating enough, they can actually absorb lead more easily than kids that eat on a regular basis. Vitamin C, it helps the body absorb iron. I'm just going to let you know what that's important. These are a list of foods that are high in vitamin C, and I'm sure there's many that your children would love, or grandchildren. So, iron helps stop lead from being absorbed into the body. So So you can see how that vitamin C and that iron work together. And then these are just a few of the foods that are high in iron. And then calcium too. Calcium also helps prevent lead from being absorbed into the body. Putting in ice creams on there, I think everybody probably could eat that. Children would love that. So you can see that, you know, those three work together to help prevent the lead from being absorbed into your body. Homeowner repair. If you have paint tested to see if it's lead-based paint, hire a certified lead inspector to assess the lead dangers in your home. Assume that it's lead-based paint and take precautions until you find out. Only homeowner occupants can perform renovations, remodeling, and repainting without certification. So if you live in a rental home, that's going to be a little bit different story, and we'll get to that. Clean up thoroughly, dispose of your waste in those heavy-duty bags, get them to the landfill. You know, if you hire a contractor, make sure they're Iowa certified lead-safe renovator, which if you go on the IDPH website, there's a whole slew of people that you can contact. It says where they're from, it has their telephone numbers. I think this might be the last video.
In this video, we will discuss how to make homes lead safe during repairs. If you live in a home that was built before 1978, assume it contains lead. Lead-based paint may be under new layers of paint or wallpaper and in some varnishes. To make your home lead safe by completing repairs, you must ensure you are using lead-safe work practices. You may want to consider hiring a certified lead-safe renovator or take a class to learn how to use lead-safe work practices. If you plan to do home repairs yourself in a home built before 1978, there are steps you can take to protect yourself and your family from lead. The first step is to always assume lead-based paint is present and to use lead-safe work practices. The second step is to contain the work area. This can be done by covering floors, counters, and any furniture that cannot be moved out of the work area. Doorways and heating and cooling vents should be sealed off with plastic to contain lead-contaminated dust. If you are completing exterior repairs or renovations, be sure to cover the ground under the work area. The most important thing to remember is to keep children and pregnant women out of the work area. The third step is to protect yourself during repairs. To do this, cover exposed skin with clothing and gloves, cover your eyes using safety glasses, and protect your lungs by using a respirator. The fourth step is to not use repair methods that generate large amounts of lead-contaminated dust. There are a number of methods to remove lead-based paint, but the safest method is to use a method called wet sanding or wet scraping. Other methods like dry sanding and dry scraping, open flame burning or torching, uncontained sandblasting or power washing, and using a heat gun at temperatures above 1100 degrees are not recommended because of the large amount of lead-contaminated dust they generate. Additionally, any power tools used for sanding, grinding, or blasting should be equipped with a shroud and a HEPA vacuum attachment. The last step is to clean up the work area thoroughly. To do this, use a HEPA vacuum to clean up dust and debris on all surfaces, followed by wet wiping and wet mopping all surfaces in the work area with soap and water. Then rinse with clean water. Repeat this cleaning step until water rinse is clear. For additional information on lead-safe work practices and to find a certified lead professional, visit the Iowa Childhood Lead Poisoning Prevention Program website.
Okay, rental properties. Iowa rules require the following of all landlords, contractors performing renovations, repair, or painting that may disrupt lead-based paint in pre-1978 rental properties. And this information is all on the IDPH website. You must be trained in Iowa Lead Safe certified, must use lead safe work practices. The rules may apply to any renovations that's not considered like a minor repair, and they actually have a definition for that on the website that you could look that up if you needed to. They have specific work practices. They have to post signs They're working, they have to contain their dust and debris to that certain area, don't let it get around the rest of the house, especially like if they're working inside. Cover objects, so I don't know if it's in a room where you can't remove objects for some reason, you're gonna wanna, cover everything up with plastic. You don't want that dust or the paint chips or anything to get into your couch or table or whatever. Make sure waste material has to be contained and stored and transported safely. They have some prohibited work practice of uncontained water blasting or dry scraping. They must use HEPA vacuums for cleaning. Their work areas have to be cleaned and verified with post-renovation cleaning verification. They have some additional requirements. Certified lead-safe renovators can test for presence of lead-based paint using approved testing kits. On-the-job training is required for all non-certified individuals, and they had some information about that on there. I didn't add that today, but a renovation report is required for each renovation. For more information on lead-safe renovating and rules, I have a website if anybody would want that information. If you have a rental property, I can get that to you afterwards. Finding a lead-certified lead professional. So I went on and looked at this list here on the left side of the screen. Like I said, it has lists of all these people, their names, where they're from, telephone numbers, how to get a hold of them. So there's a paint inspector and assessor, and they actually do two different things. So that inspection tells you the lead content of every different type of painted surface in your home, but does not tell you if the paint is a hazard or how to deal with it. So then that risk assessment tells you if there's any sources of serious lead exposures, such as peeling paint, lead dust, and tells you what actions to take to address these hazards. So it kind of lists them separately, your lead inspector and your risk assessor, but when I looked on the website, most of the people I think I found, they were inspectors and assessors. They did both things, is some of what I had found. Here's a little information. The state of Iowa received $500,000 through a cooperative agreement from the CDC in fiscal year 2021 to focus on ensuring lead testing and reporting, enhancing lead surveillance, and improving linkages to recommend services. I have Nicole here from Southwest Iowa Housing and Planning Council, and she's going to talk a little bit about a grant that's available. Do you want to talk about that?
I take my mask off. They're probably running away. And I think that's in everybody's, there's just a flyer in here, this the blue and white, that we just put in. And this is actually something that I gave the Lord at Public Health. You can give this to people, and it's just real basic information on our grant that we have available to help people that need the assistance to get their homes, the lead hazards out of their homes. The two biggest key points, and this is driven that home, is their home has to be constructed before 1978. The grants with HUD funds, and that's the number one stipulation. If it's and 78's actually, I think I mentioned once in here, 1960.
Yeah.
They actually gave that broader range because so more people could get the assistance, but it's usually under 1960, but we accept under 78. And then we have on the application a lot of information about children that reside in the home if they're under 6. We do have a real small percentage of the units with this grant that we can assist that don't have children. And like rental units, the landlord has to agree that they would prioritize renting to children, families with children under 6 for the next 3 years after we would do the work, just because we do know it's lead safe for them. So, and we are just getting this program started. We're just getting ready to start our first couple projects. So basically, this it has all my information. I'm overseeing the program. We have 2 lead inspectors. We've all been through intense lead training. This was all like, yep. But the lead inspectors are wonderful. They have a lot of experience. We actually, I think a big thing we talked about was SWIPCO has purchased an XRF machine. Not many agencies or anyone have those currently. You have to go through the state usually to get someone to come out and do that. And we can shoot every surface in the whole home. There's a lot of requirements they have to do when they come in for that. So Basically, if you have anyone that needs this information, the first step would just be getting a hold of us because there's an application process, obviously. The first step is a 2 or 3 page application, and then there's a lot of income eligibility information. We do, the families that we can help have to be under the 80% median income for your area, the county. Depends on how many people in the household, it's kind of a whole formula. And then once, they're approved for that, our inspector would go out, inspect the entire home, and then he would do a lead inspection risk assessment. His report would say, what hazards he's found. We have monies to fix those hazards for people. Some of it is just, could be wet scraping and repainting services to complete abatement, like, the surface of the walls need gutted. I mean, it just all depends on the home. So, kind of in a nutshell.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you, I appreciate that. So, you can contact Nicole Rhodes in Atlantic, or you can contact Lori with Shelby County Public Health, and they can get you that information.
And there is a lot of information. Our website's on here too. We're actually working on a whole page that you can direct people to, swipco.org, and there'll be a lead page where they can get some information too. So.
Okay, thank you, appreciate that. Okay, well, I'm gonna have Angie come up now, and talk about, the grant that, we're kind of promoting here, for Myrtue, Shelby County.
So like Lori said, when we first started, she's been working a long time to get a grant for Shelby County. The SWIPCO grant is not just for Shelby County. It's, for, I'm not quite sure of all the
7 different counties.
different counties in Iowa. But the lead remediation one that Lori has worked so hard to get is the Shelby County only. Again, we've kind of put it together that it's going to be in compliance with the SWIPCO grant. It's kind of how it's going to kind of work. So again, homeowner, landlord, they must, but they have to agree to have an inspection done by me. So, and we'll go out and just kind of look and see what's kind of going on in their home. They've got the chipping pan and all the things that we've kind of talked about here. The other thing with ours is you can maybe have. I just saw on a swap page somebody was trying to sell an old crib. Now, those old cribs have lead paint on them. I don't know what year it was, obviously, or any of those things, but those old cribs, some of us don't think about those sorts of things, and I know my daughter chewed on her crib, and kids do that. So, our grant will replace that. So if you need a new crib, maybe, or maybe grandma's watching your child while you're working, and grandma has the crib that, you used, or your mom used, or whatever, we have some ways that we can replace that for you. We can also do house some cleaning, maybe of your air ducts. Some of those things that people maybe just really don't think about. So we're happy to do that and help with, of course, purchasing paint, maybe paint brushes, whatever you would need. We have the capabilities of up to $500. Again, it is for Shelby County. Our grant is for Shelby County only. So, and of course, then the cleaning materials. Whatever cleaning materials that you may need to help kind of clean up your house, that sort of thing. We are happy to, help with that. So, if somebody has questions about this or, questions about lead in general, feel free to give them my number. They can give me a call or Public Health, which is the 755-4422 number. We're happy to talk to them. We're happy to meet with them, whatever it takes. We just want to do what we can to help with parents who are learning about lead and getting it out of their home as much as we can. So, thank you.
Thank you for going over that. Okay, well, really, this is it. We're wrapping it up. So, just if your child has high blood levels, there's things you can do. Make a plan, see your doctor, make sure you get those follow-up appointments made as recommended, okay? Find out where the lead's in your home. Call your local public health clinic, get somebody in to assess your place, and then get it cleaned up, get it remediated. And now we're lucky that there's grants available that can help clean up our homes and remediate our homes. I think it didn't used to be that way, so people didn't do it. Feed your kids healthy foods. We went through that. And get support. Call public health. They're happy to talk to you and answer your questions. That's it.
Thank you, Sherry. That was really good. Question. Amy, so
they said like to clean the toys and wipe things down, and then kind of mentioned just water. Is that all you really do, or do you need to use bleach or soap or what?
Yeah, general cleaning. You don't have to use bleach or anything like that. Bleach only kills germs, it won't get rid of blood-based paint. But, yeah, you can certainly clean. And that's the theory behind it. You know, paint or the dust, as you know, you have to dust weekly at home, right? No matter when your house was built, somehow dust comes in. Well, when you have blood-based paint dust, it continues to accumulate. You want to have regular cleaning practices.
They're making fun of you for how often you dust, and not making fun of you. They're like, she does good! Nobody doesn't want to do that.
One of the things that I know we were really listening to Carla, that I didn't hear mentioned, is the reason they eat it is because lead is sweet.
It is, so if you peel this off and eat some of it, it's gonna be sweet. And that's why kids come back and continue to eat, they get addicted to it, it's good. But it has no nutritional value and it's neurotoxic. So we need to get rid of anything that looks like that.
That was so crazy to me. I'm like, what? Like, that's why they eat it.
It's really sweet. You're right, it's sweet. Do you have any other questions for Sherry or myself? So we are doing some gap filling testing. Angie is, she goes to WIC. So if we're capturing ones that haven't been tested through our hospital, they might not come to our hospital for care. Doesn't matter, we just want to catch them and be able to help them. So we also monitor our lead-based paint, our lead testing here at Myrtue. That gets sent to us if it's over 3.5 or will be. And we contact the parents, say, hey, you know, we need to talk. We talk about nutrition. We talk about maybe, depending on how high it is, are we going to come into the home and see what's going on? And certainly we're going to be offering grant services to help remediate. So just so you know, Angie's out and about testing kiddos at different events and at WIC.
I just got, in fact, today, some results from Myrtue that two of the kids in the house they're actually pretty high. Greater than 3.5. So what our plan is to, contact the family. Hey, this, we've got these lead levels. This is what they are. We'd like to come into your home and kind of evaluate, see what's going on, see what we can point out, and then, of course, now we're going to do this education with these 2 grants that are out there and see what we can do to help these people. Because, obviously it's, these 2 kids have it now, and if they have any more, I don't know their whole family history. If they have younger kids, I don't know. So we're going to find that out and say, let's, what can we do to prevent? How can we help you? And let's get this taken care of. Because, again, most people don't know that we have this, all these great grants and, kind of what's going on with us. So we're just going to educate them and go from there. So, yeah, if in your clinics or whatever you get high leads, send that our way, and we're happy to follow those families and make sure they're getting the testing that they need to do. Myrtue's pretty good about it. Their physicians know, check their levels at 1. Maybe not as good at 2 and not at 3. So we're trying to kind of push that with our providers to say, hey, let's get some more checks done. Do it a little bit more frequently. It is required before kindergarten that they at least have to have 1. So we kind of like to push that a little bit more, but we're just, we're doing what we can to get educated and get these kiddos tested. So.
One reason we're kind of high on the risk model is because we're not testing very well at age 2. We're doing a pretty good job at age 1 locally in rural clinics, but at age 2 we're not there yet. So we'll get there. We need to continue to encourage that practice, and then use IUPH's model a little more routinely. And the other thing that I'm excited about is that landlords can also use your funding, which is phenomenal, up to $20,000, I believe you said.
Yeah, and landlords do have, they have to do like a 10% match, which, they'll be getting a lot of work done for a low minimal investment on
Yeah, I think any of us would take $20,000 if put in $2,000 so we can get $20,000 so we can really improve our homes. So I think that's important because you don't know how many times we've seen the same home be an offender of lead-based paint poisoning. And this is a way to remediate that. It doesn't have to be that way. And so we can educate landlords that there are resources out there for them. Any other questions?
Are pregnant women tested for lead?
Not routinely. Not routinely. And like Sherry said, the scary piece is, they may have been poisoned as a child. And now they're pregnant, they grew up. Remember, lead's a gift that keeps on giving throughout life. And so they become pregnant, and that can be a cause of a miscarriage, or a small baby, or a premature baby. And all these things that we don't like can happen. So it's important to catch them while they're children. So as they grow up, they don't have these problems. You know, the frustrating part from a public health standpoint, we've known about the dangers of lead-based paint for decades. 1978, law started happening. So here we are in 2022, still talking about it. Why hasn't this been fixed? Why hasn't this been fixed? Where's our commitment to our children and our communities, and who are going to become our adults in our communities? So this is a rare opportunity to help families fix these problems and be done with them once and for all. And that dry scraping or dry sanding, that does not work. That will spread lead-based paint dust everywhere, and it takes forever to get rid of it. So please don't do that. Use the wet paint scraping and sanding. If you're doing any remodeling in your home, protect yourself. You don't want lead in your body either. But we certainly don't want it in children, who do absorb it so much better. They're really good because they have virgin bodies. They're open to everything and anything. Lead, radon, it doesn't matter. They like it all. So we don't want that though. We want to prevent them from having environmental exposures to things that are bad for their health. Healthier kids, healthier community. Simple as that. Sure, you